Hi, I'm Sue, and this is Savage Spiel War Stories. My home group run a lot of campaigns in the same game world, and to distinguish them, we normally give them names. I fondly remember such adventures as Appleview, The Redemption of Harad, and Holiday in Koboldia. But there was one campaign we played that, while it had a name, it never got used. According to the GM, it was supposed to be called The Search for the Eightfold Key. What we called it was the Player Massacre of 2010. Now, for any pedants out there, no actual players died. You know perfectly well what I mean. Back in 2010, the Pathfinder Advanced Player Guide was pretty new, and we were pretty keen to try out some of the classes in it. Pathfinder had a number of additional classes over what you'd expect from a D&D game, and for the most part they were extremely well done, very flavourful, and we were keen to try some of them out. We thought this would be a great opportunity. We had no idea. We started out with a party of 5. Ari, Volrek, Anya, Lysara and Zid. And we really should have figured out where things were going to end up going in this campaign when in session 2 we found an entire village of werewolves. Now, if you watch my previous video on the subject of werewolves, you will understand just how utterly unequipped we were to deal with that. It says they turn into wolves and they don't like silver. So it wasn't much of a surprise to any of us in session 3 when Zid got killed by a really medium werewolf. And to just explain that one, when the GM says, you open the door and see a huge werewolf, when you're playing D&D or its clones, you really need to be a little more specific. And from then on, anything that fitted into a 5-foot square but was a little larger than average was referred to as really medium. Shortly after Zid's death, Volrek decided to retire. The player wasn't particularly enjoying the character, and so he was rapidly replaced with Zordlon, a human wizard, and Victor. And I can't actually tell you what Victor's race or class was, because ultimately they were very much subsumed by later events. We will, of course, get to that. We also picked up a 6th player at this point, Tanaruk. Well, we dealt with that giant poison zombie snake, didn't we? Wait, what's happening? After we'd all recovered from the shock of seeing Lysara killed by a giant exploding poison zombie snake, we introduced a new rule for the GM. We all remembered a previous campaign where we'd had to deal with a fiendish albino vampire-winged drow, and he was told that under no circumstances was he allowed to have a monster with 5 or more words in its name from now on. Sometime after this, Victor, well, he didn't exactly die, but he wasn't quite the same afterwards. He turned into a skeleton, to put it simply. Look, I'm totally different to my cousin Lysara. She's a witch, I'm an alchemist. We just happen to look very much alike. Rakshasa! One fireball later, both Jakila and Ari were reduced to ashes. They were replaced by Ariadna, the half-orc inquisitor, and Ugruk, the gnome rage prophet. Not long after this, Victor died for real. He got chewed up by a giant flying worm with legs. Giant flying worm with legs. Yes, that's 5 words. I really should have pulled the GM up on that one. So, Victor was replaced by Valrion, a human summoner, and things actually seemed to be going okay for a while. We got through a session or 2 without anything particularly horrific happening, and then I had to miss a week. So, let me get this straight. In the time that I've been away, Ugruk has been killed, Tanaruk has been killed, Zordlon has been turned into a statue, and Valvion has been arrested for grave robbing. I am never leaving you guys alone again. Ultimately, Zordlon's statuification turned out not to be permanent. We did manage to find a scroll to reverse it, and Valvion's player had to quit the game. So only 2 characters ended up needing replacements. We were joined by Vizier Khan and Utah. And then, only 6 months after the game had started, Anya, the last surviving original party member, died. So, that was the search for the Eightfold Key. But by this point, nobody could remember what the Eightfold Key was, what it was supposed to do, or why anyone would be looking for it. And so that's the point when the campaign ended. Now, I always look back on the player Massacre of 2010 when people start talking about OSR games, because a big part of OSR seems to be people feeling that newer versions of Dungeons & Dragons, particularly anything from 3rd edition onwards, which does encompass Pathfinder as the game's most successful unofficial fork, these games are just too hard to kill players in. I would like to respectfully disagree.